Alright, in this video we're going to go over Unity content that we covered in class for day 2. So at this point, our game should be at the point where we have all of our assets in and a character set up. Just going to show quick where I'm at. And so once all your assets are in, we should also be able to move around and occasionally jump. So if you're at this point, you're ready to go to the next step. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start setting up our animations. So to get started there, we're going to go ahead and open the Window tab, and we're going to grab animation, the animation timeline, and I'm going to go ahead and just dock that down here. And then we're also going to go to Window, Animation, Animator, and let that open up here. So to get started, I'm going to actually start and create a animation folder. And in the animation folder is where we'll store everything. So to get started, I'm going to select what I want to add an animation to, in this case my player character. Then I'll come down to the animation window and press create. I'll navigate to my animation window, and in here I'll create my first animation. I'm going to call this run. So I got my run animation here. I'm going to make sure I'm selected on my player character, so this is active down here. And then I'm going to navigate to my assets, open up my sprite sheet, and select all the frames involved in my run animation and drag those in. So now if we press play, we can see our animation playing. And it's a little too fast, so I'm going to go ahead and drag this little bar to extend it out. Maybe I'll make it a little faster. So once your frames are in, we're going to go ahead, we'll just stop that, and we'll go back, select our player character again, and now we'll come down to where it says run right here. We'll click this drop down and we'll add a new clip. I'm going to call this one idle. So now I'm going to create my idle animation, which is just going to consist of a single frame of my idle pose. And then I'm going to create one more animation called jump. Save it. And in the jump, I have my jump animation, which is just one frame as well, but I'm actually going to add 2 in here so that I can control the length of it. So now I have my player character reference as well as 3 animations. So once those are set up, the next step is to come over to our animator, and with our player character selected, into the animator, we have all of these guys here. So the next kind of portion here is we're going to set up some transitions between our different animations, and then add conditions to tell the game when to switch between the animations. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click the idle animation, and I'm going to set it as my default state. And then I'll put jump up at the top, run it at the bottom. Now I'm going to add some transitions in between. So I'm going to right click on any state, make a transition, drag it over to jump, right click jump, make a transition to idle, and then we're going to do idle to run, and run back to idle. So you should have a setup kind of like this. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to come up to the top left, go to parameters, and we're going to create 2 new parameters. So I'm going to press plus. They're going to be bool parameters. This first one's going to be called button hit. And it's really important to make sure it's exactly the same. So button hit, no spaces, all lowercase. And then we're going to add another one, another bool called w hit, no spaces with a capital H. So once those are in, we're going to go ahead and now assign, these are our conditions. We're going to assign these conditions to the transitions. So for the any state to jump, we're going to come over here. I'm going to press, so when you select a transition, you'll see it appear in the inspector, and then you'll see a slot for the condition. So we're going to add a condition, we're going to add W hit true. So when W hit is true, we're going to go to the jump, and then from jump to idle, we're going to add a condition, and this is going to be W hit false. And then from idle to run, we're going to add button hit true. And then from run back to idle, we're going to add button hit false. So now we have our different conditions telling the game when to go from each animation to the other. So at this point, if we press play, nothing's going to happen because we've yet to actually reference these animations in our code. So I'm going to go ahead to my script, and I'm going to open my player controller. So in our player controller, we got to add some stuff. First thing I'm going to add, or first thing I'm going to do, is you should have this animator anim commented out. I'm just going to delete those 2 backslashes, and I'm going to do the same thing in the void start this line right here. So I cleaned up mine a little bit, so if it doesn't look exactly the same, that's fine. Just know that you still have all of these different if and else if statements. So next, what we need to do is we need to add in some code. So first thing we'll do is, and I'm copying this all directly from our Google document. It has a bunch of code in it. So add this code. So I'm going to add this first block. I'm going to add it here. So this first section adds a basically says when we hit the W key, we're going to set the animation of W hit to true. So we can add that in right here. So I'm going to enter this down, go to the top, and paste this in. Cool. So if, boop, else if, boop. Cool. Then we have the next one, which is the anim.setBool. This guy right here. This was the first one we added in, and we're going to add this to this if and this else if statement right here. So I'm going to select here, enter, paste. Same thing with in the else if, paste. So now we have code in here in the fixed update to when we press W, we're gonna give ourselves jump, and then we're also gonna set the W hit to true, and if the W otherwise we'll set it to false. And then down here when we are moving left or right, we additionally set the button hit to true when we move left and right, otherwise we set it to false, which we will add right here. Cool. So in review, we added this first section. If key code W is hit, we're going to set the animation to true, otherwise we'll set it to false, and we added that in this key code W and grounded, so in our little jump section. Then we added the anim.setBool button hit true to the horizontal movements, so we added it here and here. And then we added this else set animation button hit false right at the end, as well as uncommented the animator anim. So this lets us reference animations, and then this lets us set our animations. So let's save this and let's come back, let it update, and we'll be able to see if this will work. So if stuff's working, when I press play, we shouldn't get any errors. And now when I move left and right, we are telling the game to, if you look up here, you can see button hit is true, and when button hit is true, we transition into the run. Now, when I press W to jump, when we press W, it goes into the jump, and then when we let go of W, it should come out of the jump. So right now, that's not working. So our else if W hit turn false, it's never turning false again. So we got something messed up a little bit. So we're going to go back to our code and check. Right here. So that would be this guy. So if it is grounded, set W hit to true, else W hit to false. So hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can figure out what's going on. Alright, just a simple mistake here. We placed this block of code in the wrong section. We added it in this if statement, but it has to be its own if statement. So to solve this, I'm just going to Control X to cut it. We'll go ahead and back this up a couple, get rid of these extra lines, and then we'll select right here. Then I'm just going to press enter, then open brackets, and then you can see it makes the end bracket. Then we'll press enter 1 time to give us a space in between, and then we'll paste it back right in between there. So now if we save, let's see if it's working now. So we save, back to Unity, let it update, and press play. Let's see what we got. So we're moving back and forth, and when we jump, it runs through the jump and then back into idle. So this is working as we want. So now what we could do is set up some, we can adjust the animations to work a little better. So if you want to adjust your animations, sorry about that, was getting some Discord notifications. So if you want to adjust your animations further, so in my case, I want to make the jump last a little longer, because after I jump, it finishes up way too early. So a couple things I'll do right away is I'm going to go through each of these. So when I select on a transition, it will open it over here, and that was a bad example. So I'll press from jump to idle, and we have has exit time. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to turn that off on these two as well. So has exit time means when you switch to a new animation, it's going to finish playing the previous animation. So if we turn that off, as soon as we switch, we will switch to the new animation immediately. So then I'm going to go back into my animations. I'm going to click on my jump to open it down here. I'm going to scroll out to give myself some more space. I'm just going to extend it out. That way, when I press play again, I can hopefully update my jump time. No, it's not working at all. But anyway, there's always something. So jump. Where's my jump? But so we can fuss with the animation timing to get that set up. But so after you do all that, you should have a character that moves with their animations. So the second portion we did today was set up a basically an enemy, which means we're going to make an object that we can run into and then will be destroyed and play a little particle effect. So to get started with that, I'm going to go ahead and go to my assets folder, and I'm going to grab this rock here. Or actually, I'll grab this guy. So I'm going to drag this new character in the scene. I'm going to go ahead and put him on my playable area sorting layer. Put him down here as my enemy. And first thing we need to do is create a new tag, because the next block of code we're going to add is going to reference enemies tagged as enemies. So to create a new tag, we're going to go to the select on an object, go up to the inspector, open our tags. I already have one created, but you can go to add tag and press the plus and create a new tag and save it. So I've created a tag called enemy. So on the new character I brought in, once it's on my sorting layer, I can go ahead and tag it as an enemy. And then we're just going to add a Physics 2D Capsule Collider. And I'll adjust the size of it a little bit. And there we go. So now we have something to interact with. So last bit of setup we need to do is we need to right click in our hierarchy, and we're going to create, we're going to go to effects and create a particle system. This will be what will spawn from our enemy when we destroy them. So if we select our particle system and come over to its settings, I'm going to swap its duration down to 1. I'm going to turn looping off because we only want it to play one time. Then I'm going to come down to the renderer tab, and this is where we will find our sorting layers and order in layer. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the playable area layer. Cool. Then I'm going to open my prefabs folder, and I'm going to drag the particle into here to create a prefab for it that we can reference later. And once we have our prefab made, I can go ahead and delete the one in my scene. Alright, so now we got our enemy tagged as an enemy with a capsule collider, as well as a prefab particle system made. Looping turned off, duration set to 1, and put it on its appropriate sorting layer. Now we can go ahead and adjust our code. So in our case, because our player controller is pretty simple, we can add more stuff to it. So we're going to add the functionality of this to the player character. So I'm going to go to my scripts, open my player controller, which I already have open here. I'm just going to close this one because we don't need it. And I'm going to go back to the Google Doc. And if we go down to the next section, we have this little bit here. I'm going to highlight all of it, copy it, go back to our code, and then I'm going to come down all the way to the bottom. And on your second to last bracket right here, I'm going to click next to it, enter down one time, and then Control V to paste in this new function. So this function triggers when there is a collision with another 2D collider. So then it will look for if it's tagged as an enemy, and then it will instantiate a particle at this location, and then destroy the other game object. Last thing we need to do now is we're referencing a particle here, but we need to tell it what particle that is. So we're going to grab this variable here, copy it, come up to the top to our list of variables, go to the end, enter, paste, and save. So now we have a new public variable that'll let us plug in a particle, and then we got this new function, triggers on collision. If it's tagged as an enemy, spawn a particle, destroy the game object. So let's go back to Unity. Let it update. Now, if we select on our player and come down to the player controller script, we'll see a new slot for particle. So I'm going to go to my prefabs, I'm going to drag the particle I created and drag it in there. Now, if everything's set up, when I press play, as you can see, when I run into my enemy, they will be destroyed and they'll play a little particle effect. So now I could take this asset I created, I could rename it, call it enemy, and then I could drag it into my prefabs, and now I have an enemy I can just drag in and place around my level and run into and destroy. So as you saw in my case, they were displaying behind. That's just because I never set a appropriate sorting layer. So if I come up here, you can put them on the playable layer, and then I want them to be on layer 1. Or actually maybe in front of the player, so I'll put them on 2. Boom. There you go. Alright, so that kind of covers what we've done in day 2. We added animation to our character. So we have our character moving with animations, and then we created an enemy that we can run into to destroy and spawn a particle effect. In the next class, we're going to start going over creating a projectile and then look at some more, more things. But that covers day 2.